Introduction. Warning. Spoilers. All of them. I may spoil even stuff that has nothing to do with Life is Strange. Geralt dies in the end. You have been warned. First off, Life is Strange 2 is a great game. Technical aspects are all there, and it is not the focus of this video series to comment on that. To get it out of the way, visuals are great, music is great, although let's face it, Daughter's music from previous titles in the series just kicked way too much ass to be bested here. Mechanics are intuitive and familiar, length of the game adequate, content is rich and so on, etc. In other words, great, I have no issue there. Don't not, or whoever picks up the torch, continue doing it just like that. Second, as someone who has some experience with how the production process works, I feel like some of the things I consider unpolished, mistakes, or loose ends aren't necessarily a fault of the writers or more generally the creators, but maybe simply side effect of the process of creation. Publisher, production, or whoever's in charge often has a strict budget and timeline, and certain ideas or features have to be abandoned to accommodate a schedule. Typical example might be a movie which has complete script, but producers start to meddle just before the shooting starts, or even during the shooting, and say, there is too much dialogue during the second act of the movie, we could use an action sequence to keep audience's attention. And as a result, you get a fight scene that doesn't really fit in, instead of, say, revealing dialogue. I'm obviously simplifying. The point is, few scenes in Life is Strange 2 felt out of place in similar fashion. I have linked a video with anecdotal example of studio meddling, but I don't want to skip ahead. The first Life is Strange game demonstrated in the very few minutes that it is an interactive medium to tell a story, to capture a moment, often quite literally. Daguerreotypes? A process that gave portraits a sharp reflective style, like a mirror. This is how I approached Life is Strange 2, as an interactive medium, the game, with players' actions being the force that drives the story. And more than wanting to play the game, I wanted to feel the game, experience it. I wanted to be captured in the flow of the story, let my mind drown in the mixture of music, visual treats, colorful characters and strong emotions. Let me try to explain what I have in mind. In order to have best experience of life, and Life is Strange, you need to be in a state of, let's call it harmony. That is the best relation you can have to something, to someone. That is what feels so good about having friends, right? They do things that please us, and we know how to please them, instinctively or from experience. Strangers don't know that. They often don't resonate with our being, with our actions, with our expectations. You expect A, they do B. They are not in tune with us. Like dancing with someone out of rhythm, listening to someone playing out of tune. Keep that notion in mind for a second. When writing a story, you usually need settings, a protagonist, his motivation, conflict and antagonist to push the protagonist into the conflict, or to push the conflict onto the protagonist. Settings are Sean's house initially, and various places in the United States later on, but also the relationship between the brothers. The narrator of the story, the main character through whom we experience the story, is Sean, but the protagonist, as in the prime mover of the plot, is often Daniel. Not always, but in many places it is Daniel who initiates the events. For example, at the end of episode 2, he is the one who pushes Sean into breaking into Karen's room. I may use these terms interchangeably throughout the series, because both characters move the plot forward, especially since we are actually playing as Sean, but I feel it is important to note here that there is a small difference, because at times I felt like I was the main character, but not the protagonist. Continuing. Conflict and motivation is something many players weren't very clear on, or straight up disagreed with the main character. I will go into greater detail on multiple occasions in this series, mostly in episode 1, but for now, let's just say that for the most part of playing Life is Strange 2, I simply didn't get the main character. I wasn't in tune with him. I didn't get the overarching storyline. I understood, obviously, but didn't comprehend the deeper meaning. Why were the chapters about the things they were about? What was the motivation of my character? And what was supposed to be my motivation? Not my character's, but mine as a player to continue playing. Let's play a little game, or more precisely, let's try a thought experiment. Lose your ego. Do it. Just for a minute, forget the knowing of I am looking at the screen and something is going on it. You can't do it, can you? It is not possible to discard your personality. You will always realize that what you are hearing is my voice, not yours, and what you are seeing is just an image on the monitor, not the world in front of your eyes. But it is a dream of every storyteller to draw you into a story so deeply that you can almost experience it with your own senses. Reading is just staring at a piece of dead tree for hours and hallucinating wildly. That kind of thing. But Life is Strange and even Before the Storm made a very fine job of dissolving many a player ego, where I, for example, didn't think in the dimensions of, wow, Max Caulfield is in real trouble, too bad for her. But I thought, what? Where? Oh, the dark room. That's the beauty of many games, and that is what I like to call a harmony. When yours and your character's feelings and motivations are synchronized. But Life is Strange 2 didn't have that kind of impact. I have never really felt like I was my character, like I was Sean dealing with issues at hand. I rarely knew what was going through his head, what was his decision-making process. I wasn't sure what bothered him, or what made him happy or content. What was his mindset? I was in similar situation that Sean experiences with his mother and Karen. On some level he refuses to acknowledge them to be the same person, even though they are. Just as I didn't feel like I was Sean, leading the story of this game. I understand it takes some time to get under the skin of my character, and was perfectly content with being patient and letting the story play out for a while. But during the gameplay, I started to doubt. I started to think that I already am under the skin of my character, and there is nothing inside. That Sean's character is hollow. I was hardly caught in the flow of the story. Quite to the contrary, I often felt spit out of it, like I was just an observer, not the player, not the main character. And in the following video series, I'll go over the story of Life is Strange 2 and its aspects, and explore why they didn't resonate with me, and possibly with some of the player base, as powerfully as the previous titles. I will try to understand the meaning of selected parts of the game, and dare to suggest how to utilize them better to create a bigger and deeper emotional impact on the player. I will do my very best to formulate which parts were pushing me out of the story, out of the character, and out of harmony, and why, and which parts helped me to tune in. Oh, and one more note, if you are planning to watch this video series in a sequence, do yourself a favor and get yourself a fucking beer, cause this is gonna be one hell of a long story.